What does it take to make the world a better place?
If you want to be a leader, you got to take risks.
Meet a woman who's dedicated her life to fighting for social change and learns every day that the rewards are worth the risk.
One of the things that brings me the greatest joy is bringing out the best in other human beings.
Who is this modern hero?
I am Diane Cornman-Levy, and this is my story.
Diane is a powerhouse in the nonprofit world and the perfect fit to take the reins as executive director of Women's Way, a group that's been advocating for female rights for 40 years. Tell me a little bit about Women's Way.
Women's Way is a nonprofit organization that is committed to advancing the status of women and girls in the Philadelphia region. And so our mission is to mobilize the community to invest in organizations that serve women and girls and that fight for gender equality and justice. There's power in coming together and having a collective voice.
But for Diane, finding her voice didn't come naturally.
As long as I remember, I had this drive to help people. And partly it's because I think I was very sensitive to the world around me. I felt people's pain, their emotions, and yet I didn't trust my voice. I didn't feel like I could speak out. I didn't have the courage. And I'll tell you another experience. First grade, there was a girl, and during recess, she was outside, and a group of boys surrounded her and made her take her clothes off. And I witnessed this. And it was horrifying. And somehow no one saw this, no adult. I saw it, and I was too afraid to speak up. And I held that in for years. For years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you begin to find your voice?
I was still very quiet, and finally he said, Diane, you have a voice worth hearing, because if we don't speak up, these kind of things are going to continue.
Diane comes from a family that's not afraid to fight for change. Her parents volunteered for several organizations and even started a program that brought kids from underprivileged communities into affluent neighborhoods where they had an opportunity to get a better education, and the experience had a lasting effect. What was that like as a 10 or 11-year-old to realize that there was something so much bigger outside of the bubble that you were living inside?
It was empowering in a way when you bring other people into your life that are different from you, and they start challenging your preconceived ideas, your assumptions, your biases, and you become vulnerable. But in that vulnerability is where your learning happens. That's the kind of family I grew up with.
So much of your upbringing has made you into this resilient, determined, fierce woman who really is in touch with what's going on in the world.
It really did make me who I am today.
But sadly, in the spring of 1978, Diane's life took a tragic turn.
2 weeks before I was graduating from high school, my father was driving my sister back from college, and my mom was in the car. He was on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and about 5 miles from home, and there was a truck carrying tires going the opposite way, and the tire fell off the truck, bounced over the median, came through the windshield, and hit my father in the head and killed him. And my mom just said, you know what, this is a really hard time, but we're going to be strong, we're going to be resilient, we're going to make it through. We have each other. First thing she says to me.
Wow.
And my mother hadn't worked for years, so she's like, I got to go back to work. And within a month, she was a nurse. She found a job as a nurse, which she continued to the age of 80. But watching my mother, she was incredible.
She turned straight to solutions and trying to find a way to get through for all of you.
Her resilience and her courage through that, again, was modeling resilience for me. And I think when you lose someone like that, you don't have a chance to say goodbye to someone like your father, you don't take life for granted.
Diane went on to Brown University, where she pursued a degree in psychology, and soon after got her master's in physical therapy. Throughout her time in school, she put the values her parents instilled to good use by volunteering in various community service initiatives. Diane eventually moved back to Philly, where she noticed a growing problem throughout the city.
It was 1991 when homelessness was at an all-time high. And I literally had to walk around and over individuals on the street to get to work at Thomas Jefferson University. I was teaching then. So I said, I got to do something about this. For 2 years, I did community outreach, trying to get homeless individuals off the street. And during these experiences, I realized there was all these physical therapy related needs that were not being addressed. So I talked to this group of students at Thomas Jefferson University, and we decided to start a student-run physical therapy clinic called Hands of Hope. It started in 1993. It's still up and running. And actually about 6 other universities started a program based on that.
How does it feel that it's still up and running?
I mean, it gives you just great joy and a sense of meaning and purpose. We're all born with this great goodness and great potential, and it's our job to bring it out in others.
After 10 years of working at Jefferson, Diane devoted her time to a variety of nonprofit organizations, and her biggest project helped tackle 2 of Philly's most persistent problems.
There were 40,000 vacant lots in Philadelphia. That's a lot of vacant lots.
That's a lot of vacant lots.
Yet there were food deserts, which is a fancy word for saying low-income families did not have access to affordable, healthy food because there's unequal resources out there. I could work really hard and I could be born into a very underprivileged community and not have access to resources, but I have the drive, the resilience, the determination, but I don't have access to those resources.
So what do you do?
I met with a group of women leaders in the community, and I said, so what are your greatest needs? And they talked about a lot of things. There's no grocery stores. Yet we have all these vacant lots that frankly are attracting drug dealers and trash. So what do we do? I said, well, let's just take over a piece of land and make it into an urban farm.
With the help of community members and the Philadelphia Horticultural Society, the project grew into something bigger than she could have ever imagined.
These teenagers came by and said, what are you doing? I said, oh, we're starting a farm. I'm like, well, that's interesting. And one teen said, well, what if we made this into a business where we could sell this food? So it led to a youth-led food production nutrition business called Teens for Good, which then led to 6 urban farms in the city.
So that's how you turn a problem into a solution.
And I facilitated, they did it. That was the greatest thing. That's where people coming together across different classes and race and ethnicity, it creates these new solutions and can level out the playing field.
Diane has learned a lot along her journey, and she's using those lessons to make Women's Way a leader in issues impacting people in the city and across the country. It sounds like you're bringing in your background from all your work in nonprofit and all the different things that you've done throughout your career, and you're applying it to Women's Way to really advance the issues and try to move it forward.
Yes, whether it's economic security of women and children, dealing with the domestic violence, promoting safety, working on reproductive health care, reproductive freedom, and leadership development. If we really want to make a change, we've got to not just do it on an individual level, we've got to do it from a collective and then from a policy level. Until you start speaking, you don't really know what's inside of you and what you can offer. As Executive Director of Women's Way, I want to give places for women and girls to have a safe place.
And Diane has no intention of slowing down. Do you ever feel like, God, I can't do this anymore. This is so hard to keep going?
There are times where you get tired. You get really tired. And there are times where you feel hopeless. But that's when you really have to look into your inner strength. And when you finally find your voice and it's heard, it's like this liberating moment. It's incredible.
What is a modern hero to you?
It could be anyone. It could be a 12-year-old girl. It could be a CEO of a company, but they are taking the initiative. They see a problem and they address it. Those are modern heroes, and they're not heard enough about. That's why I love what you're doing, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, I applaud what you're doing.
Do you consider yourself a modern hero?
You know, it's funny you ask me that. By that definition, yes. Absolutely. It's when we don't toot our horn a lot.
I know, that's why I was going to call you out on it. If you said no, I was going to call you out on it. So I'm waiting for a hell yeah from you.
Yeah, hell yeah, I'm a modern hero.
Thank you. Thank you. Follow Modern Hero TV on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.